but it's being recorded, so you got lots of oohs and ahs and claps, and that way it'll sound really good to the people online. So go for it, Rachel.
All right. Thanks, Ben, and thank you all for allowing me to come and take a look at your community. I'm an economist from Mississippi State University, and I work for Extension Service, and I look at communities like this all the time, and I'm going to be honest with you, this was one of the trickier studies that I have ever done. So, and also, I want to just kind of let you know that anytime you have existing data, there's always going to be glitches and flaws in it because it's collected, in a mass way. So it will not hurt my feelings if you question my data, because there are things that I have questioned as well. And so after we get done presenting tonight, if you have questions, you want to talk more about it, just let me know. Okay, these are just some basic demographics that I wanted to take a look at. The population, city limits of Saltillo is 5,000, but your primary trade area is about 5 minutes from the city center. That's just your primary, the first focus area. That doesn't mean that that's your only trade area, but that's the first circle that I looked at. And basically you take a ring and you get all the people that live within 5 minutes of the city center. The secondary trade area population, though, is 10 minutes from the city center, and that is a population of 9,233. So that's a significantly larger population than actually your city population. That makes perfect sense when we did our drive-in tour, seeing how many people live, out from the city center. In the area, your median household income is over $58,000, which is very, very healthy and good. The per capita income is $24,183, and the median disposable income is over $41,000, while the state's median disposable income is just a little over $34,000. So I'm saying all that to say that in your community, you do have a lot of spending power, and that's a good thing. When you compare Saltillo to Mississippi, we have the per capita income of Saltillo is the top line, and then Mississippi is the bottom line. And you'll see that Saltillo is higher in pretty much in every category, actually. So y'all are much healthier than the rest of the state. And when you put that in perspective of thinking, we're also, when you look at Mississippi as a whole, you're looking at the coast, you're looking at Upper DeSoto County, you're looking at Jackson. So y'all are doing good. Did a zip code survey, and I think that was out for a couple of weeks in the local businesses, just to kind of find out where people who are already shopping here are coming from. Predominantly, it's from inside your community. Then also you're getting some from Tupelo, Guntown, a little from Blue Springs, Plantersville, and Shannon, and then Baldwin. And that is kind of what we expected to see. You're not going to be, Tupelo has what's called a very large pull factor, and that means that people are going to generally gravitate towards a community with a much larger population than a community with a small population. So I'm not going to get too detailed in that, but a lot of people go shop in Tupelo. Just a quick business summary, you'll see that these are the different types of businesses that you have. You have retail trade businesses, finance and insurance, real estate. Your service sector is actually your largest sector here in your community. This is just a picture of, I did a retail trade analysis, and that is very, very hard to read. So I'm just going to kind of tell you just some of the high points is that you do have a lot of your sales going to other communities, but there is potential for growth from different avenues. And this is a pretty good way of kind of telling, okay, this is where you really do have some chance for success. And general merchandise is this blue line right here, and it's showing that there's room for about $5 million worth of growth in that area here within 5 minutes of your city center. So this is just within 5 minutes of Saltillo. So kind of put that in perspective. So that's good news if y'all are looking to expand some of your general merchandise businesses, things like that. This is something else I wanted you to kind of take a look at. When you look at this bar chart, and I know y'all can't read all of this, but this side of the chart is where you're already bringing business in from out of your community. That side of the chart is showing where you are actually losing a lot of business to other communities. So you all are losing businesses, losing sales in areas such as motor vehicles, general merchandise that I mentioned before. Clothing and accessories is actually bringing in some business. Also sporting goods, hobbies, and miscellaneous store retailers. This just kind of shows the same thing, but the reason I wanted y'all to see that is that y'all are leaking dollars to other communities in a whole lot more categories than you're bringing dollars in. And doing that, and what do we want to do to change it, and how hard do we want to work to change that? Okay, I did a little bit of digging in to try to kind of figure out what's going on and maybe where there might be some niches for Saltillo, because we did see that there are some niche businesses in the area that are already doing very well. So I'm just going to kind of let y'all just kind of think. Y'all like that? I'm seeing smiles. We got any dog owners in the audience? Everybody raise your hand if you have a dog. Okay, thank you. That's Hazel. That's Money Baby. Okay, take a look at that. That is Waco, Texas. I kind of want y'all to get in mind for things that might work. It's a place called the Spice Shops. I'd love for y'all to go home and Google search that, but it's a model where you have multiple entrepreneurs under the same roof. And so they sell a lot of different things like jewelry and arts and crafts and clothes and things. It's a place where you can get all your Christmas shopping done in one place. So just kind of think about that. Think about that as well. Has anybody ever been on a paddleboard? Does anybody do yoga here in the room? Anybody ride exercise bikes? A little bit, okay. Also, that is a picture of an ice cream shop and something that I think is very cool in Madison, Wisconsin. I would love for y'all to go home and Google search their community lake and what they have to offer around their community lake, and I'll talk about that here in just a second. And that is the Bark Boutique. I'm going to tell y'all why I'm showing you these pictures here in a second. Okay, what I learned, these are just some unique things about you and your community within 5 to 10 minutes of Saltillo. Y'all are way above the national average for pet ownership. I have never seen that before. I mean, y'all are 44% above the national average for pet ownership, so y'all love some dogs and cats. That's why I want to show you the picture of the puppy, just to kind of see if everybody went, oh yeah, that's great. Okay, y'all are above the national average for people who hunt and fish. Y'all are about 23% above the national average for people who do that. So, might be something to think about. Another thing is y'all are above the national average for watching equestrian and bull riding events on TV, which got me super excited because I'm an old rodeo girl. I was like, yes, these people are cool. But think about that. Above the national average for walking and exercise. And I thought that was wonderful to see all those tracks, walking tracks, things like that that y'all got going on. But that's, you all are health conscious. You're working towards being health conscious. That is something else that's important. And then I thought this was also funny because y'all do a lot of walking, but you also eat a lot of steak. Y'all are about 40% above the national average for people who have gone to either a fine dining or a local country diner for eating steak and potatoes and stuff like that. So that is kind of a niche there as well. And then also, we learned a whole lot about your community, that y'all are very focused on your schools and youth and things like that, which is wonderful. You have the spending index potential, and you do spend a lot of money on playground equipment. Stamp collecting, I thought that was kind of odd. That was right up there with playground equipment. Exercise and sports equipment. So the reason I'm telling y'all this is to kind of think, okay, we want to expand our, maybe you want new businesses, but maybe you also, if there are business owners in here who think they might want to expand their merchandise, those are some areas where the people here already want those goods and services, but they may not be buying them here. Last thing I'm really going to talk about is the Southern Satellites and the Heartland Communities, InStyle, Soccer Moms. These are different profiles of people who live within 10 to 15 minutes. That kind of sums up your values and beliefs. Very patriotic, very focused on community, love your families. Have the Soccer Moms, these groups down here all have 1 to 2 children, so 30% of the population here has children, so that's something to think about. And the InStyle is a little bit different than those groups because they love art, and they're more of the younger population that may not have children, but they're wanting to, kind of move in that direction. Got 2 segments. Assets that will be talked about here in a second. You've got the Natchez Trace, Lake Lamar and Bruce, Highway 45. You've got a lot of communities you could partner with for events, and your spending potential. Strategies the rest of the team is going to highlight. Startup Saltillo. I'm not going to talk about what that is. Maybe a business plan competition to kind of get some entrepreneurs off the ground. Exploring a pop-up fair. An entrepreneur support program I think would be very good, because if you want to support out into that experience. And then as I mentioned before, product and business diversification.
Thank you so much. All right, so I just always like to reiterate, because you sit there and you look at the numbers, and I will say my older brother is an economist as well, and a lot of time we do these presentations, and I always make fun of him. I'm like, yeah, we like to get the boring stuff out of the way first, right? But the fact is, these numbers are so very important because the numbers serve as the foundation for all the recommendations that we're making. Therefore, we're making recommendations that are actually based in money that exists now. And that is an extremely important place to start. We're not going to be making recommendations that depend on inventing new money. It is about capturing money that exists in the customers that are in your immediate area. So I think that that's really, really important. And I love to hear as Rachel digs into those individual categories. Because one thing that I have learned in the past 15 years is when a business opens in a community and then turns right around and fails, the community gets blamed. People automatically say, oh, that won't work in Saltillo. And that's not fair. Because we don't know. There are all kinds of factors as to why a business fails. But it's not fair for the market to bear the responsibility for it. So as we start to shape how we build out and recruit new business to our downtown district, we want to make sure that those businesses have every opportunity to succeed. So the categories where you're leaking the most money, the categories where the personal interest of your population is the highest, those are the areas we want to focus in on. So that's why that information is so very, very important to us. Does that make sense? So then from there, once we have this understanding of the economics of the community, we can start to look into the design issues. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this, and then I get to pass it on to Leah Waters. But I want to talk a little bit about overall context. As Rachel said, one of the things that we heard was you're a community that likes to walk and likes to exercise. I do believe that that is directly tied to liking to eat steak. If you're anything like me, eat the steak, then go on a walk so you don't feel guilty. But one of the first things that we did, and if just to orient you with this map, obviously here we've got Highway 45, Highway 145, Mobile Street coming in. We've got the railroad line over to Natchez Trace. And there are already existing opportunities and connection points to create pedestrian connections that link from the city park to the sportsplex, up into the heart of downtown, all the way up to Lake Lamar Bruce, and down the road long term, a pedestrian leg out to Natchez Trace. So those kind of infrastructures and kind of pedestrian connections allow the community and its amenities to be connected moving forward. Those are things that all younger populations that are making residential selections are looking for. So really, really great, easy to accomplish in terms of understanding how the connections could work. So that's pretty exciting. Then from there, the next thing, and all this that I'm sharing with you was done by Andy Kalbach. The next thing is really an overall community framework. And what we're seeing here, again, this is 45, Highway 145. So everybody knows if you're traveling up Highway 45 and you take that exit, and then you make that right turn, and then you make that right turn on the Mobile. So we've got our gateway opportunity here. We've got this street where you take a hard right turn, then a hard left turn, and then drive through a neighborhood and wonder whether you're actually going towards the downtown or not, because you're in the middle of houses. And then finally, you achieve and reach this downtown destination. Now, some of these spots that are highlighted in yellow are opportunity sites and I think available property to be developed per se. But then as we start to dig in to this downtown, the other thing that is so important is focusing in on, as people come to our community, there is a sequence of arrivals. There's a sequence of times when the physical place tells you that you're entering somewhere special. So if you're coming in from the Trace, when you hit the railroad tracks, you are arriving into downtown. And if you're coming in from the west, you've got this interesting sequence, and the the whole physical space changes as you go from 3rd to 2nd to Front Street. So coming into the community with a very key focus on this block of Mobile Street between Front and 2nd. It is obviously the densest and most intact of a downtown core. So we've got to focus on this whole area. Now, one of the big issues that we heard over and over again is you can talk about business all you want, but if we don't have parking, it's not going to work. So I got a pretty exciting plan to share with you. Now, before I dig into it, I want to throw out a disclaimer. We did a plan using a very interesting mindset where we're going to look at the buildings that exist and we're going to look at the uses and needs, and we're not necessarily going to ask permission first. And I know that's not always the best way to handle it, but what we wanted you all to see was we wanted you all to see how you could enhance the workability and the viability of your downtown district through infrastructure improvements. So what we see here, if we highlight in, this is 3rd, 2nd, and Front, and Mobile Street. So in this overall plan, these are our existing buildings. We're showing how we can recapture space behind those buildings. We're showing long-term, possibly 20 years down the road, how different businesses through the community, different property owners in the community might see benefit in changing the use of their property. With this plan, we are showing overall growth of parking amenities while also reinforcing the edge that makes a place feel special. In this, you see the red buildings. These red buildings are showing infill opportunity. And you can see they're not a whole lot of red buildings. Realistically, we're not really talking about down the road having a whole lot of new buildings built. But notice where all 3 of those buildings are. They're right on the corners. Simply introducing the concept to you all that creating a sense of urban space, reinforcing the feel of a downtown, and giving you the opportunity to do some new construction that fits in with the look and feel of a historic downtown, but also gives you a variety of different uses that could occur there. So I want to go into a little bit more detail, and I'm going to look at each side of the street. So first of all, what we're looking at is we're looking at just the block between 3rd and 2nd. Now, a couple things that you'll see is you'll see that with the used car lot that's on the corner of 2nd, down the road, if that property changes hands or the usage decides to change, an infill building that goes up and engages the street front would do a lot of good to the way that your downtown operates. If you reconfigured some of the space usage in this lot, you can capture 22 additional parking spaces right there on this southern side. With adding some additional amenities here along the streetscape on the northern side of Mobile Street, you can also maintain 10 parallel parking spaces on that block. And then by reconfiguring the lot back here, you can actually fit 30 different spaces, 30 cars back behind the block, behind Q-tips. So you can see how with keeping the buildings like they are, you're able to get more resources to fuel those businesses. Now we are showing one other thing that after looking at the property here, if you know, this is the old Dr. Shotgun house. And then right now, this is kind of a dirt entryway back into the back lot. But realistically, in a block this small and a community like yours, it probably makes sense to shut that access off to vehicles. If we're reconfiguring this parking lot back here to get 30 spaces, by blocking it off, it allows you to maximize the functionality of that space. If you have to preserve entrance into this, you're going to end up losing a whole lot of spaces for being able to accommodate the car getting back there. In addition to that, it also makes the overall block work better because you're not ever having to deal with cars trying to turn into this weird mid-block entrance. Does that make sense? All right, so let's move on down. And now we're the north side of Mobile Street. So we're seeing some enhancements along the streetscape. I'm going to talk about that in a little more detail in a second. Here is where the two-bay car wash is right now. And granted, I want to be honest, as we have been based here, I've seen people washing their cars all the time over there. So I don't want anyone to see this as a projection that a self-service car wash is not a viable business that the community needs. But the thing that we are saying is, as we are looking at the overall vitality of our community, as we look 10 and 15 years down the road, we might find that there is a more appropriate place for a self-service car wash. And if we were to be able to get that space, we can now create an additional 38 spaces just in that continuous lot. Spaces here could serve anything on this side of the street and could also easily serve Mobile Street. You can imagine if these buildings along the north side fill up with business, then there's going to be a higher level motivation from your customers to do that walk. In addition, we're showing an additional 15 parking spaces that fit back here and an additional 11 back here. You can see with restriping in the grocery store parking lot, you can gain a tremendous number of parking spaces simply by adding order to that gravel lot. But long term, you might also have the opportunity for some sort of infill building that engages that corner. And we'll show you an image of what that might look like here in just a second. Now, in addition to that, if we look at the south side of Mobile, there's also a tremendous amount of property and space behind that block. And if you went through and consolidated and brought some of those together, you could actually create another parking lot that could fit 90 to 100 spaces. An overall gain of over 200 spaces in your downtown. And all of these, now we're not saying that it all happened at the same time, but we do understand that if businesses want to be successful, they need customers. And if customers want to shop, they need a place to park. So the nice thing is, and I hope that you see with these images, being able to carve parking amenities out that can make your downtown more viable is extremely realistic. Does that make sense? All right. So this gets a little fun because anytime you have a community that has the grade change that you do between your street and your store frontage, you're going to have some issues. Right now, if you're pushing a stroller or if you're in a wheelchair, it's kind of difficult to get into the businesses that do exist. So what we wanted to do was we wanted to show you how you could handle a scenario like a grade change like you have in the best way possible. And I will tell you it's not ideal. In a perfect world, you would either figure out a way to raise the road or lower the buildings. But neither of those really happens. So we got to figure out something in between. So what we're seeing here is we're seeing a good single level surface that grades to a ramp on either side and has a single collected set of steps right at the curb with a very narrow splash or edge paving. And those narrow steps would occur periodically in the in-betweens of your parallel parking spaces. So if you see here where we've got all of our parallels here, the steps only occur at these entry points. So you're not constantly having this huge stair-stepped kind of Mayan Incan temple feel in your downtown. So you're able to use this sloping ramp like you see on the right side and then the step down. These are some illustrations that Andy did, helping to kind of show what that might look like, being able to get from street grade up to the store frontage and being able to have a single surface where you can get strollers and you can get those wheelchairs up to them. And then again, being able to give that appropriate access point through the convergence of those parallel spaces. Now, the other thing that we wanted to talk a little bit about is you have very narrow sidewalks. And narrow sidewalks can be a challenge when you're trying to figure out how to ramp your sidewalks for ADA compliance. But they can also make things real easy to make a space feel vibrant. And as you go through and as you activate your community, you want to make sure that those businesses have products that spill out onto the sidewalks. So we've got some examples here, different things like planters, and we can tell that you understand this. You've done some of this, but you want to keep walking down that road. In addition, taking opportunities to highlight small spaces, small intimate spaces throughout your downtown. You know, little things like as you walk around the corner and you find a water pump that actually pumps water. You know, those are the little experiences that people connect with and they take away with them. Believe it or not, extremely unattractive buildings look a whole lot better when string lights are hung between them. It's amazing how much you can get a little bit of buffer simply by doing small gestures like that and attention to details. Being able to have opportunities for people to dine outside is extremely important. Connecting any linkages, small little connection points. As we show all of these off-street parking amenities, we need to understand that we're expecting customers to get from backs to fronts. So making that as easy and as character-driven as possible. And then with this, we're going to show some examples of what can actually happen throughout the community. And I'm going to bring up Leah Waters.
I'm Leah. I'm an architect on the coast. I've seen small town work. I've seen small towns struggle with some of these same things. So anything that I'm talking about isn't pie in the sky, that things can't work. It also is not ignorant to the fact that some of these things cost money and that some of these things take time too. But the one thing I do want to talk about is that we don't overlook the little investments we can do, whether incrementally or all in once, that really start to contribute to an overall downtown. And I'll kind of talk about that in just a second. I really want to highlight DB's because I think it's doing a really great job on the downtown of hitting a lot of the kind of key factors that are important on the downtown. It's clear that it's been painted in recent years. Looks like it. You can tell what the business is from a couple different places on the building. There's flowers out front kind of bringing the building to life. Big thing, there's stuff in the windows, not just in the day, but at night. And it just feels alive as you go there. And then the awning is also in really great shape too. And then I'm going to go through the next one is kind of an example of where we are right now with a lot of the street fronts there. And so I'll speak to something. Has anybody do you remember the story of Stone Soup from when you were a kid? I use this example a lot in design, that the story of Stone Soup, I remember the Disney version. And two kids went to their uncle. Hey, uncle, we want to have a big dinner with the whole town. Guys, I can't afford that. That's never going to happen. Oh, uncle, all it takes is a stone and a big pot of water. Oh, fine, I can come up with a stone. And so they put it in there, and oh boy, this would taste so good with just a little salt and a little pepper. I might be able to find salt and pepper, and a carrot would be great in here. Oh, you know, maybe potatoes. And eventually it turned into this big thing because his excitement grew for it more and more too. I kind of think the downtown is a story of Stone Soup. It starts out, we've got a great pot, we've got a stone in it now, and then DB's might be the first start. Maybe we've got the salt and pepper. Maybe it's someone else that's bringing in a couple ingredients, and someone says, well, I could wash my building and get it cleaned up, and someone else says, I could paint mine. Suddenly a new business comes to town. It's this incremental thing that builds an excitement. I'd like to give you a little bit of homework in the downtown area, encourage other businesses to do this. The first step, a lot of the storefronts simply need to be washed. Even those that have been redone, the spiders are really liking the buildings, and it shows. So if we could go in there and wash them, and I have a very practical solution, not just power washing, because some of these are old windows that leak. Probably don't need to tell you that. And so when we put high pressured water into them, you get the water inside too. A solution like Strip It, I guess, is a product that I've heard. Joe Max is a product I've used many times. You mix Joe Max that you get at Lowe's with some bleach, spray it on with gentle water with a garden hose, then spray down your garden hose afterwards, and you will see stuff melt off. If you have a vinyl sided home, whatever it may be, Joe Max is great stuff, and you get it at Lowe's or Home Depot. I'd encourage you to start there with the storefronts. Let's get them clean. Step 2, let's dress them up with some seasonal decor. Maybe even buildings like this that are vacant, could we put some Christmas trees in it that are lit year-round, or could we put something in them to give a sense of life? These aren't long-term fixes, but these are some that you've probably all driven through downtown for quite some time, and some people stop seeing it. And if we can get everyone to see it and notice it afresh, we give the semblance of a facelift to grow on from there. So let's dress up the storefronts a little bit. Placing planters outside of the entries, hanging ferns. Some of the storefronts really need to be painted, and I would say most of the storefronts really need to be painted. The painting needs to be done well. They need to be historical colors. Most paint companies have a historical line, and I would recommend going to a paint store and finding that. The paints that you're getting at Lowe's and Home Depot are not the same paints that you're going to get from Benjamin Moore, Sherwin-Williams, or a paint store the like. It's a better line of paint that's sold at those stores that'll last you 10 years. The paint purchased at the big box stores is not the same quality and will not last you 10 years, nor does it come with the expertise of how to apply it, which is really important when we have these old brick facades. Painting them is a big thing. This is an example, though. Shutters on this building aren't really accenting it, and so if we have some things that aren't really contributing to the building, let's take them out. Awnings are going to go a long way on a lot of storefronts too. Even if they're not inhabited, we're going to start giving the town a new presence. There are a lot of flags in the downtown, the fall flags. That's nice that it's helping animate the street. Let's lift them up a little bit higher so that as you're walking down, you don't have to lift the flag to walk under it. And those can start to become your business's flags also. We're going to walk down the street at some before and after pictures. We're going to start on the corner where Jason and Brandy have the tattoo shop in the back, and right next door is the event space, and on the corner, I guess everyone knows, will be another business coming down the road too. This is a sketch of kind of what we could propose after the fact that would include, right here, the trees are currently blocking the entry to the building, so we would recommend actually removing one tree to get access into that building, visual access a little bit better. Right here is a really nice opportunity for a little pocket park, we would call it. Maybe the pavement needs to be torn up there and grass put in. There's a drain, there's a bench there already, kind of encourage pausing there a little bit. Cool place here for a really great mural. Something that would go a long way, the stop signs that we have. Painting the signposts black makes them feel more like a street light of that language rather than the boring highway department galvanized metal. We're proposing on this building that we would actually paint the storefront on the left rather than painting the entire building, which makes it feel wide and another big building on there. We want to make it feel like lots of individual buildings because it makes it feel a little bit busier in the downtown. So I would recommend painting the building on the left and leaving the building on the right. Awnings on both of these would go a long way. I know that there are historic signs that could be placed back up overhead, which would be really great to see, but we might also need some specific signage to what's happening in those now. Putting some lights coming from overhead will really help animate those spaces, as well as putting furniture in front of both storefronts, even if they're not the same occupancy. We're showing on the flags, on the street lights, banners on the sidewalk side and flags on the street side. Continuing to walk up the street, vinyl siding isn't particularly historic, so the proposal there would be fiber cement siding. Again, fiber cement is probably our most economical, good material we have available to us, and our long-term plan will show exactly the materials used in this so that it can be well done. But again, we're having, instead of a short awning, we have an awning that stretches the entire way across. We're adding in some signage. These planters could be painted a signature color, and the hashtag Saltillo Life is a really cool thing, and so let's reinforce it around the town too. Another really cool thing is the bench that's right by the water pump. Let's put a couple others around and kind of rebrand things as we go. Looking at these two buildings together, the building on the left is in really great shape. I would wash it. If we can paint it, I would paint it, but other than that, It's done some important things of having a nice awning, and we've got some stuff in the windows too. The Woodman Life building has also been nicely redone, and I'll just point out a couple of things that we could do to that. Replacing the support with tie rods, tying back there would be a little bit decorative. Getting signage up top, because you'll notice that there had been signage there at one time. And then let's go back again. The face looks dark, so what could we do to brighten it up some? Well, what we could do is do some of the planters on the front that you've seen in some of the images Ben proposed, and then also dropping in some plantings from above. Have flags here in place of the fall banners right now. That might be a good place to put individual flags as well in this building. This building here is storage at present. It's a really beautiful building. Let's wash it. If there's an opportunity down the road, something that would be really cool there, I saw some of you writing down the spice shops that were mentioned earlier. That's exactly what I could see in this space. It's set up that way now. You walk through a long corridor down this building, and there's storage sheds on either side. Well, that's a great framework. What if each of those was rented instead by an artisan or an artist? They were communally monitored throughout the day, that you have 1 to 2 staff people that's monitoring the sales and the security of all those buildings. And you kind of continue this concept that's in there now. I know Bay St. Louis has one, others were mentioned, but it's not an antique flea market kind of thing, but it's really an artisan gallery. Is something I could see in this building itself. So that's what we're showing here, is washing the storefront. Maybe let's paint the roll down door, put some plants out front. The building that's presently used for AA right now, let's at least paint the brick. And it has an awning on it too, but you can see that little Joe Max will go a long way on that and make it look shiny green new again. And again, we're continuing with signage. Also noted here is simple lines in the road for striping is going to start making you realize exactly where the bounds of parking starts. It's going to be some new paint, small little facelift we could do. These buildings unfortunately have been power washed, which may have taken off the protective finish on the brick, and so painting them actually isn't a bad idea. So we're showing here painting them. This is an example of a tree well that's extending into the road, which would require a good relationship with MDOT. So I'm not sure. Sometimes that's an easy process to be able to encroach within the state highway. Sometimes it's not. So I'm just going to show it here that we don't want to block entrances with trees. We don't want to block that view shed, but this is a perfect one, place for a tree well because it's not right in the signage of a front door that it would block somebody's marketing opportunity. The apartments on the corner. So right now, downtown is stop sign to stop sign. What could we do to extend the downtown a block further on either side? Well, one way is to make this part of the downtown area. It starts by a sign. Let's tell people this is where downtown starts. And we can pop a sign on the corner. I would recommend moving the Lake Lamar sign off just a little bit because your sign deserves front and center attention. We're not shifting it so much that you're not still capturing people. But if they're headed to the lake, let's make sure they know that go half a block more and you're going to get to our downtown. Here again, we're painting the stop sign. And then a simple measure of cutting a little bit of asphalt here and pulling the grass around the corner can kind of neaten up this corner there. I would recommend to the owner there, maybe if they did something as simple as a fence and leave room for some of the plants that are already in the downtown area, it defines a line, which gives a density. And a lot of what we're trying to achieve in this block right here is creating an edge, because our downtowns are edges. It's a big, massive building on one side and an open street on the other. If we can replicate that in the blocks before and after downtown, you've extended the downtown just right there. And then this is another little plant well, and these were trees that I accidentally drew in the parking space.
And you were doing so well.
I was.
She was drawing.
So this is also a contributor to the downtown, the same block. What can we do here to make this feel part of the downtown area? Q-tips here. This building is probably not inhabitable by some international building code definitions. So in the event that that building ever changed hands, that building, somebody saw fit for another opportunity there, what we're recommending there is an easy solution, might be some sod, a couple benches, a tree. We have a nice little downtown park. Maybe it's even a little bit of a playground. But the long term, it'd be great to see a building on this lot too. That would truly extend the downtown. But this is kind of the low-hanging fruit. We could get there. This building presently is not in great shape. It's probably not safe to walk in that building just because it's an old building in disrepair. It probably needs to be taken down. I am proposing in these two, leaving these a warehouse occupancy, perhaps a building, be creative, that might not require HVAC, so the existing shop building could stay. I would recommend Q-tip shifting to the building on the back, build a big building, build a structure that's pushed off the road. There's an opportunity to pull in for parking with ample parking and storage of vehicles behind. We'd like to get the cars off the street, just because that isn't contributing to the feel of a downtown and encouraging further retail. Getting the office and the entry on the corner of that building does a lot too. I know one other solution that people might be quick to come to is, well, I'd like my building front and center, and I'd like to step it back so that I can have parking in front and my customers can have easy parking access. The reason this doesn't help the downtown is because it's a suburban way of doing things. We're used to, in the strip mall across the highway, you park in front, you walk inside. It's a sea of parking. A downtown isn't a sea of parking. A downtown is buildings. You park on the side, you park in the back, and you kind of restructure things. It's a little uncomfortable, but it's what makes a town, too. And so we're proposing not putting parking on the front. This is where Ben had showed a little pizza gate, whether it's a pizza gate or things that are sold in open air is what we're showing in that slide there. And then continuing down the other end, how we might be able to contribute to making downtown one block bigger. At bare minimum, striping would be wonderful to see in here, and maybe down the road, there's actually space for a building in that space there. And then also, this is City Hall. I called Ben to ask him where City Hall was. I think Michelle called me to find out where City Hall was. We were all trying to find City Hall. Well, let's put a sign in front of City Hall.
No, they don't want to be bothered.
That's why it says Welcome Center. So it's not the mayor that you're bothering. It's Stacy, and it's also fire and police. And then I don't have, this is another picture that just didn't come out well enough to show you the final version. But this is what you're met with when you first come to, your phone first tells you, hey, you're in Saltillo now. It's a sign that's a little bit overgrown. We would recommend bare minimum to go out there and trim the trees off tomorrow. And then after that, Ben can show you some examples of signage. That'd be a great place to start your branding, as well as this is starting the promenade into the town. And so this is where you can start thinking about, this is the gateway, this is the front door, how are we going to introduce your town? I love the flowers in the downtown area. That seems like a pretty low cost of beautification in downtown. And this spring, the nursery started carrying an abundant flower that everybody started purchasing flowers, blue. Everyone's hands around the house, the church that my program is suddenly actually have their colors leads me to the downtown. Everyone's spending dollars all contribute towards kind of the brand manufacturing.
Thank you so much. And I will say, kind of recap on that line section. For those of you that live here a long time, you sit there and you look at the building, you look at what we're suggesting, what we're recommending, you know what they worked for years ago. I know many of you sit there and say, that's not worth fixing. Just knock it down, get rid of it, and start fresh. The thing that I will is they just don't build them. They don't. And places that are built today feel different. And the more that you knock down, the less character you're going to have. Anytime you can find a way. And the thing that is so nice about it is these are small and manageable buildings. They're buildings that can be restored, and their square footages fit with a lot of the needs that you have. So let it sink in, and if you trust anything about what we're saying, trust the idea that authenticity goes a long way. Just like you respect authenticity in a person, people respect authenticity in a place. So being able to to have those buildings work for you and being able to invest in those really mean a lot to preserving the character of who you are. So with that, I'm going to carry us around to the last section, promotions. As we go through this process, you know, we've sat there and we've looked at the economics, we've looked at design recommendations, but none of it means anything if we can't get customers here. And it's not just about customers. We're sitting here watching residents move into our community and not becoming connected to our community. So we've got to make sure that as we're seeing residential growth, we're also experiencing growth as a place. So we want to give you some tools that help you to connect those dots. We knew that we had a lot of different things going on. We had a lot of different challenges to us because, as Rachel described, there are a lot of different people that live here with different interests that are on pretty polar opposite ends of certain spectrums, but there's certain qualities and just kind of a clean and versatile value that everybody seems to hold true. So the first thing that we like to do is we like to create a foundation for consistency. So we selected 5 colors for the color palette. We've got, you can't really tell based off the projector, but that's actually a dark blue. We wanted to do a couple blues, but we wanted to do a blue that was slightly different than the school blue. And we do that on purpose because your school pride is one thing, but we're also trying to cultivate pride in place. And that's a little bit different. So we wanted it to be complementary, but not exactly the same. We've got kind of a gold, we've got a gray, and we've got a green. And we selected 2 typefaces. The primary is a clean sans serif typeface, and then the accent is kind of a script typeface. Now, from there, once we create those elements, the next thing that we wanted to do is we wanted to think about message. And what we always like to do is we like to write a brand statement. And this brand statement is taking the things that we heard you say to us over the past 3 days and turning it into a narrative that helps us to tell the community story. So I'm going to read that for you now. We're Saltillo, Mississippi. We're a small, welcoming town with a big heart, nestled here in the hills of North Mississippi. We invite you to experience our active life. Surrounded by the Natchez Trace and Lake Lamar Bruce, we thrive in this beautiful place we call home. Play ball with us, Little League, Saltillo football, or just a game of catch. We invite you to experience the family-friendly life. We are proud to welcome the children of the region who come here to learn, feel the power of the tiger, and enjoy the roar of our fans as we cheer on our team. We invite you to experience our small town life, escape from the rat race and highways of life, and feel the warmth of a real community. Slow down and get to know your neighbors and build your family's future right here. Experience a slower pace of life, a friendly face, home for all the best of small town life. Come and be our guest and feel what we mean when we say, welcome home. So with that statement, it gives us that opportunity to talk about the things that you said were important to you, the assets that surround your communities, the values that you have as a place, and the relationships that you have to one another. And with that, we just created a very, very simple word type. We felt like we could go down some pretty challenging rabbit holes if we tried to do too much with graphics. Because graphics, that is where communities get stuck. The next thing you know it, you're going to have a picture of the trace and a locomotive and boats for the lake and a tiger on there riding in a boat on a train, and you end up trying to say too much. So having something that's clean and consistent, and I want to kind of carry that on. I think one of the big things that you start to see is with the different variations, you have the ability to go through and have consistency as you implement it, because it doesn't have to do too much all by itself. You can see how using this typeface and the colors, we can automatically bring that hashtag that has been introduced into the community and wrap our arms around it in the system. But it's more than just a community logo. It's a logo that helps us to understand the districts of the community. When you pull off 45, you have to make a decision. Where are you going? And people don't necessarily always know that both choices are Saltillo. So one of the things that we're recommending is adopting an identity for the shopping center on the kind of southwestern side of 45. And I will say the team talked about a lot of different things. We'd heard things like City Market, we'd heard things like Town Creek. But the fact is, we wanted an identity that unified and reinforced where people were. We're simply recommending that you call it Saltillo South. It kind of makes sense, but it also, we had a long discussion, is it south or is it west? And we're going to go ahead and say it's south. Because the divide that we heard everybody talk about was an east-west divide. But this is the southern entry point into your city limits. And then simply reinforcing that downtown, knowing that there are these two different districts and that you haven't seen the place if you haven't explored them both. But then from there, to me, where it really gets fun is using the foundation, the colors, the typeface to create brand extension, wrapping your arms around those events, being able to introduce new events that the community might have that, again, are taking that same identity and reinforcing it. We heard a little bit of talk about doing a farm-to-table dinner, and these are fantastic. Not only are they fantastic events, they're fantastic fundraisers. I live in a community. Our community is a little bit larger than yours, but our median household income is significantly lower than yours. We do an event like this. We sell tickets for $75 a piece, 110 people at the table. We sold out in 8.5 minutes. And our median household income is sitting somewhere around $46,000. So this is a good opportunity to get younger population into your community. I mean, you can take the idea and run with it. I love the idea of shutting down Mobile Street, sitting there and eating out there on the street. And making the downtown your dining room. Really great opportunity to connect people with the community. We heard Rachel talk a little bit about the idea of Startup Saltillo. I think that one of the things that we need to understand is the new business owners that are going to open businesses on Mobile Street cannot be lazy. They cannot be hobbyists. This cannot be a venture that they choose to go through in their retirement when they decide that they're going to go to work today because they want to, but maybe tomorrow they'd rather do something else. It's hard. It's hard work, and that's fine. There are places for those type businesses, but our downtown should not be that place. We want to cultivate a startup culture. We want to be able to take the people that have been investing and working hard in downtown and use them as the example and be able to their hard work to help recruit like-minded business owners so you can start to experience a rebirth in your downtown tomorrow. We heard a little bit about Saltillo in Bloom, being able to take this program and being able to start to have things that truly give multiple opportunities for a community to feel connected to one another. Christmas parade, you can start to see the having a platform allows you to do these things quickly and easily. Wayfinding signage. Now I can tell you, if there was no brand system in place and you decided you were going to have a conversation about wayfinding signage, you'd spend 6 months talking about what they should look like before you ever had a conversation of where are we sending people. So having a brand system in place allows it to be very, very easy. You can see here, this is an interesting sign that might appear right there as you're getting off the highway and making those key decisions. So now you can have this system in place and be able to easily roll that out. Doing very simple gestures like welcome mats. You know, this idea of a warm welcome. You guys, we've been here 3 days and you have made us feel like we're part of the community. And we feel like that is part of your value set. So make sure that you have the tools to help amplify and echo that throughout the community. And then just simply being able to create easy ways to kind of tell this story through some sort of consistent message. Now, I will say, like, that when you're going through a community brand, developing a community brand is a difficult path to walk down, because you got some people that are very, very traditional. And they remember when it was awesome in 1958. Do you remember what it was like on Friday night when you couldn't stir people with a stick because they were all over sidewalk? And then you remember the people, or know the people that grew up here, and we're trying to keep their talent here. You've got to be able to be versatile enough to communicate and be relevant to all. Now, in addition to that, I think one of the things that is important for us to look at and share is this organizational mentality, and being able to have this organization that is fostering and spurring these new ideas. We heard, I think Rachel mentioned it earlier, the idea of open for business. Creating and using the Economic Vitality Committee to go out and create a business-friendly environment and begin to turn the current citizens into economic developers. So we want to, in the first year, launch this idea of open for business, and then in year 2, we want to see if we can have a business plan competition where we take a person and put them into one of those spaces. And then in year 3, to continue the momentum, see if you can get your hands on another space, use it for a couple of months, and do a pop-up where you have like 4 or 5 or 6 businesses that show up. We want this initiative to change the way that you think about businesses in your community and the way your properties are used. Leah gave a great example of how a mini storage in your downtown could be turned into a completely different use. And chances are would probably yield a higher revenue per square foot than it is now. But I also want to take examples of other businesses that exist in your downtown. Some of your buildings are being used by service industry. They might or might not use the entire space. There's a growing trend in America today called micro retail. It is smaller retail space allowing for a denser inventory and a quicker inventory turn. So you can look at some of these spaces that are being used as office today and look at capturing the front 10 or 12 feet and turning it into a retail tenant and being able to create some dynamic economics for changing the way that your space performs for you. In addition to that, we heard the idea of reusing some of the flag banners. And one of the things that I really think is, I think when you got 5,000 people drive past your buildings, you need to have some sort of indication that you got businesses that are open and active. And being able to activate and create motion, this could be something that you could use along those buildings to help show new businesses and businesses that are open and ready to receive you. And then also simply taking this and rolling it out to events that go on through the community, cleaning up the community, getting it ready at the beginning of the football season is, I think, when this happens. Is that right? Is that what we were talking about? So having this certain time of year where you kind of look inside and you just get your house in order. Being able to make products that people want to wear. Believe it or not, if you've ever received one of those t-shirts with 6,000 logos on the back, and you knew the moment you had it that you knew what you were going to wear next time you cut the grass or washed your car. You know, think about it. Where can you go to get a shirt that shows off the pride that you have for your town? Not your school, not your high school, but the place that you live. You want to make sure that businesses offer that opportunity, and honestly, we want to make sure that businesses in your community can profit off of people and their connection to your community. So with that, we're wrapping around the tail end of it. I'm going to ask Karen Stanley to come up and tell you very, very quickly about next steps. Karen?
Well, guys, we can't be more excited to have presented this opportunity to you guys, and we hope, was there at least one idea that each of you would raise your hand and say you were excited by in this presentation? Would everybody say that? So the next steps are really going to be that we're going to come back and we're going to see you. We're going to let you digest this. We're going to let you process through this because there's lots of steps that come next. And so myself and Jen Miller and Rachel, we're all going to come back and we're going to spend some time with you after we finish the holidays. It'll take us a little bit as a team to get this put together in a format to where your team and your community leaders are going to be able to face. So we hope you will welcome us back with open arms again and let us help you figure out how to implement these in a way that is going to be a smart and decisive decision for y'all to move forward with this plan. We
Awesome.
thank y'all for having us.
Thank you so much. We kept you for about an hour and 15 minutes for an hour-long meeting, so I always like to be real sensitive on our time. On behalf of the team, on behalf of Mississippi Main Street, I'd like to thank you all for your participation. I'd like to thank you for coming out, sharing with us on all the meetings that you had. We're going to make this presentation available to you. We've recorded it, and we're going to be able to post it online. And the team is also going to remain here after to answer any questions that you might have and be able to dig in a little bit deeper. Feel free, if you want, all the yellow Post-it notes back there on the back wall were the team's attempt at creating kind of our first draft of our strategy and implementation plan. So every single time we were coming up with an idea, we were thinking about where it was going to go, who was going to do it, and when it needed to be done. So there really has been a tremendous amount of thought that's been put into it, and I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to come and work with the community. And I'm excited for you. I'm excited to see what happens. Tell you what, we'll take a minute or two for any questions or comments.
There's a new program in Mississippi, a TV program called Small Town Big Mayor. And what they've done is ever so often, hundreds of people there get together and go wash a building or go plant things or go clean up an area downtown that looks bad.
Yep.
I mean, we can all give an hour or two here or there or do something like that.
Absolutely, and I will tell you, the team has talked about several different programs. One of the things in my community in Delaware now, we do a program called 5 for Free. So our Main Street program has worked with our local Sherwin-Williams location, and we've negotiated an at-cost deal. And if a building owner comes to us and shares with them what they're going to do, then the Main Street organization will provide the first 5 gallons of paint for free. And we worked with a community in Vermont that did an event called, now Vermont's a little bit different, I will say, so some of you are going to hate this idea, but they did an event called Gallons and Pints. And it was an open invitation to the community. Come out, we're going to paint a building in one day, and then afterwards we're going to have a little bit of concert and share some drinks together as a community. So, these interesting dynamics of being able to empower the community and going through and doing these little things. I will tell you, your downtown and your community as a whole, because of its size, a little bit of change makes a huge impact. And with the approach that we took, not just from a design standpoint, but that economic and that marketing and branding, we feel like we've given you some opportunities to earn some pretty quick and easy visual wins and start to get these things in place. Now, I will say, one of the tactics, and we didn't get too deep into funding and tactics per se tonight in the presentation, but as Leah showed you those recommendations on the facades and how those might improve, there's a very, very interesting tool that was developed after Katrina and used for the first time in America right here in Mississippi down in Gulfport. And it's called a facade master plan. And they developed an overall plan, and they upgraded 62 facades at one time. They were able to single source architectural services, single source paint, single source awning vendors and signage, and they were able to truly upgrade the entire downtown at once. And with a community your size in a downtown that I think that main block, I think we decided was about 24 different storefronts or so, you could see that something like that could be extremely, extremely achievable. So there are some tools and tactics that we'll be recommending. There are also some funding mechanisms that we're going to be recommending. Yes, sir.
I would just like to make a comment. This is,
Okay.
and I think they're really important. So just some food for thought there.
Absolutely.
I think those are a couple of things that we could
Great point. I think that we can hit on those both from introducing them into that narrative as well as making recommendations on some programmatic ways that you can help highlight that. But I think you're spot on.
And I'll say that some of the ideas have not been developed out, but Clean Sweep is so that just hadn't been programmed out. That'll be my job, is to get in there and to program all of the events and to filtering all that out, and it will come out. And I thought about some other things while he was talking that we haven't addressed that will be addressed. So if you'll do know that we've thought about that and that is in our mind.
Did they say? Have an awesome bridge right
Yep.
down this street right here that's amazing. When I was a kid, I could see it from my house. I live right here. But the old bridge is amazing. If it was cleaned up, it'd be a nice place to sit. You'd have weddings there. if it was
Absolutely.
cleaned up.
And I will say that was one of the reasons as we were looking at the different pathways on that long-term pedestrian and bike connection to the trace, as we were making the decision whether to go north or south of Mobile Street, the reason that we trended south was because of the bridge and being able to incorporate the bridge. Great comment. Yes, ma'am.
Speaking of the bridge, I know at one time they were talking about.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think, historical committee is finding out what they can about the bridge, because there's not a lot of knowledge about where the plant was built. That's kind of the way I'm looking at it now, would be that a lot of stuff would be done around the bridge. That is already being.
Yeah, we met with the historical committee and it was a great meeting, and right now, we'll have some recommendations and we'll let you know what we found. We are aware of the historical values of some of the things that we saw while we were here. Great meeting and really found out that the resource center has a lot to offer. I was real encouraged about the historical part of it and about what we were finding out. But, there's not a logo for something like that, but really the resource center is getting ready to be really developed.
Okay. Well, y'all, thank you so much. Yeah.
I do have a
Okay, go for it.
Because I have a business in the south, so,
Okay.
and I know you mentioned it, you showed the, logo.
Mhm.
Is in the next steps, is it just the downtown that's being developed? Or will the south side be developed later in the other year?
Kind of interesting because the south side, when you look at the development pattern and the things that are going on in the south side, the short answer is yes. The longer answer is the south side has got some of the advantage of some of the market-driven development as it stands. But yes, there's development opportunity in the south, and there is, I think that everyone understands that the south serves a very important purpose that's not just, oh, look, it's new commercial and we're going to let them be their thing. So that's why the first step really was to acknowledge two parts of the whole and trying to put them on an even playing field. So I think that what we're going to see is we're going to see more of that come out. One of the big things that I really hope is I hope that the branding resources being made available community-wide and making those tools available for people to connect themselves to the community that they're located in will be helpful in driving that development both ways. So we've got some interesting dynamics with the way the highway runs and that kind of stuff. But yeah, absolutely.
And I think there will be, when we start to develop the program, the Main Street program, we're gonna out from downtown. It's not, everything's not gonna happen just in downtown. Because Saltillo is not big enough for us just to concentrate in that area. So Lindsay will be working on projects out south and I-45. I mean, there'll be think you'll see because of the as growth happens, that there'll be more districts added, and there'll be more programmatic, not just downtown, but throughout. And we're gonna make sure that, because we see where the retail, highway retail, and we're gonna work through all. We have towns that have done that have been hugely successful. What it really does is bring everybody to one Saltillo. So it really is a huge, it's an undertaking, but it's incremental, and I think we'll come in from.
All right. Thank you so much. Team will be here afterwards, and we're looking forward to see what you guys decide to do. Have a good night. Yeah, I turned it around. It's got, I showed you another one. It's got an icon.
I know.